She casually tossed the diaper she had used to wipe the baby's bottom into the sea, not expecting to discover an unexpected surprise. The baby's feces dispersed in the water, and the spreading scent attracted a few greedy fish. Soon, Mia noticed this. Having not eaten for many days, she quickly approached and called out affectionately to the fish. She tried slapping the box a few times, but how could the fish willingly fall into the trap? Suddenly, she had an idea. Why not create a tool to actively catch the fish? One end of the tool was connected to a long rope, and the other end was tied with a sharp little screwdriver, creating a simple spear. If she could catch some fish, the problem of food scarcity would be solved. She tried again and again with confidence, believing that once she became skilled, she would definitely catch some. Unfortunately, the tool wasn't sharp enough and scared away the fish upon entering the water. Despite a day's effort, it yielded no results. Instead, her own energy was depleted. Mia lay exhausted on the cargo box, realizing that to catch fish, she needed another idea. Suddenly, she saw a plane flying overhead. If she could attract the plane's attention, she would be saved. Though the hope was slim, Mia decided to try. She quickly descended to the cargo hold, urgently broke the TV screen, took a shard, and ran back to the top of the cargo hold. However, in her haste, she accidentally cut her thigh while climbing up. Ignoring the pain, Mia anxiously stood up, using the shard as a mirror, chanting, "Please, please," hoping that someone on the plane would see her. But this idea was somewhat naive. In the end, she only added another wound to her leg and had to return to the cargo hold. She dismantled the TV, found a curved needle among the parts, and some copper wire. After sterilizing them with alcohol, she endured excruciating pain to sew up the wound. The next day at dawn, Mia took a makeshift fishing net out of the cargo hold. She put the net into the water with 2 wooden sticks connected to the top of the net. Mia lay at the edge of the cargo box. She took the baby's diaper and carefully threw it in the net, holding the wooden sticks firmly. She knew the fish would be attracted, and all she needed was patience. Soon, the baby's feces dispersed in the seawater, and several fish were drawn by the scent. Finally, a big fish swam into the net. Mia quickly raised the net, finding food at last. I recommend this Spanish survival movie to everyone. A woman, driven to desperation, intended to commit suicide but was awakened by a kick from her unborn child. She gave birth alone in the seawater. To save her newborn daughter, she endured countless hardships, with twists and turns throughout the movie, making it absolutely worth watching. The story takes place in a distorted country where basic resources are severely lacking. Spain and its neighboring countries implemented a brutal extermination plan. Initially, the authorities ordered the elimination of all elderly people. 7 months later, the target shifted to children and pregnant women, with orders to kill them all in the cradle. For survival, ordinary people had to spend all their savings and risk their lives to flee to other regions. Mia and her husband Nicole were among them. Led by an intermediary, they secretly climbed into a container at night. The container was filled with many pregnant women and children, with one woman using an electronic drill to make a small hole, alleviating the suffocating space. Through this small hole, they saw a world full of tragic scenes. People demonstrating on the streets were suppressed by armed police, and children and pregnant women were arrested on the spot, mercilessly confined in cages. In such a scene, no one regretted fleeing that terrifying place. Nicole handed me a piece of chocolate to use at a critical moment. After some time, the container door suddenly opened, and a large number of refugees rushed in, knocking Mia to the ground. It turned out that the intermediary had taken in another batch of stowaways, urging them to enter quickly. As the situation began to spiral out of control, a bald man fired a gun to regain order. He told everyone that another truck was about to leave, advising them not to crowd. However, in the chaos, Nicole was pushed out while trying to get into the container, and a guard threw him outside. Thus, Mia lost her only support. Mia quickly approached the small hole to watch Nicole's whereabouts. He entered a green container marked 107. The two communicated via phone, with Nicole promising to get off at the first opportunity to find her, and warned her not to trust anyone. But fate played another cruel joke. The truck was stopped at a checkpoint, and despite the bald man's attempts to explain with documents, a thorough inspection could not be avoided. The container door was opened, revealing the cargo inside. An officer walked into the container, whistling and inspecting carefully. He moved step by step towards the end of the container, separated from the stowaways by only a wall. Everyone inside held their breath, not daring to make a sound. Suddenly, the officer ordered his men to stand inside the container while he slowly walked outside, counting his steps. When he reached a certain spot, he ordered his men to fire. 2 shots were fired, and the bullet holes were far from where he had been standing. Clearly, there was a partition in the container. The officer, along with his men, entered the container, but did not resort to violence. Instead, he persuaded the people to come out voluntarily, promising a safe place to stay. Otherwise, they would face execution. Mia remembered her husband's words and found an opportunity to hide on a wooden box. However, when the girl opened the partition, she was betrayed by the cold-hearted officer, who mercilessly ended her life. He then ordered the elimination of all stowaways. As the officer was about to enjoy the horrific scene inside, he discovered a surviving child. The next moment, a gunshot rang out, and the child did not escape either. Mia, who was hiding on the box, narrowly escaped. The officer ordered the scene to be cleared, and the stowaway's belongings were confiscated. Mia only dared to breathe deeply after the container door was closed. Suppressing her grief, she hurriedly conveyed the message to Nicole, warning him to be cautious. Not long after, Mia's container was loaded onto a ship as planned. But even as the ship left the port, she still hadn't heard from her husband. The little life inside her seemed to be frightened as well, having not moved for a while. While resting, Mia suddenly discovered a hidden backpack at the edge of a wooden box containing a chainsaw, a bottle of water, a phone, and a glow stick. Initially, Mia didn't pay much attention to these items, thinking that as long as the ship arrived on time, she would be rescued. But fate is full of unpredictable changes. The night sea was terrifyingly turbulent, flipping the ship over in the darkness. When Mia woke up from the nightmare, she found herself half submerged in icy seawater. She looked toward the opening, seeing only the endless sea. Inside the container, scattered wooden boxes floated, and bullet holes occasionally allowed seawater to seep in. Mia immediately realized she needed to take action. Her first thought was to contact Nicole, but the phone screen was shattered, making it impossible to unlock. In the chaos, she quickly gathered the surrounding materials, finding a roll of yellow tape to temporarily seal the holes, slowing the water's ingress. At the same time, Mia found a military knife in the corner. She opened several boxes, finding one filled with plastic containers, another with sweatshirts. She changed out of her soaked clothes into a dry sweatshirt. One box contained a large 40-inch TV, and another was filled with new headphones. Despite searching thoroughly, she found no food. There was only a wooden box left hanging above that she couldn't deal with at the moment. At that moment, she heard loud shouting outside. Mia hurried to the opening and was shocked to see container 107, where Nicole was, sinking into the sea. Desperately, Mia took out a Nokia phone, swapped in her own SIM card, and dialed her husband's number, but received no response after a day and night of attempts. She thought of giving up, placing the knife to her wrist, but just then, the little life inside her kicked sharply, pulling her back from despair. This was Mia's second child, as her firstborn had already been taken by the authorities. Mia looked at her daughter's photo, filled with guilt and reluctance. To survive in the enclosed space, she had to take all necessary measures. She managed to cut down the hanging box, only to find it filled with plastic containers. Using the container seals, she cut small segments with the knife, stuffing them into the water inlets. From the box containing the TV, she found a pipe, inserted it through the holes, and used the containers to pour water outside, all but slowly. She taped a yellow strip to the wall to mark time and recorded the highest water level. Mia tried calling for help again, but there was no signal. Even if she could call for help, according to policy, pregnant women faced execution, so survival depended on herself. She reorganized her supplies, finding little food left, a thermos and a lighter, with uncertain use. Just then, the phone rang, and Nicole was on the line. Nicole had been thrown to the roadside by the driver midway. He reassured that she must be calm and wait for him, and he will do everything to save her. Before he finished speaking, phone ran out of battery. There was a storm outside that night, and at such a bad time, Mia was about to give birth, and the most energetic moment of the whole film was staged. The next day, the baby was born safely, and Mia named the child Noah, which means that the girl's version of Noah hopes to return to the world safely like Noah's Ark. Mia could breastfeed the baby, so newborn don't have to worry about food at all. At the same time, Mia also has a new idea, planning to use an electric drill to open the top of the cargo box. It didn't take long for the food and water to run out, and there was a lot of drum drills overhead, but at the last moment, the electric drill ran out of power. Looking at the hole in the ceiling, Mia really couldn't speak. She took out her mobile phone and tried it a few times, but the broken screen still couldn't unlock. Coupled with the baby's crying, Mia broke out anxiously, throwing the plastic box everywhere, and the military military knife accidentally fell on the wooden box, and everyone who used military knife knows that it has a file on it. So Mia used the file to cut the hole little by little, but on the 6th day. The file was also broken, and now there is no way to do it, and she hadn't eaten for several days. Mia was dizzy with hunger, and even hallucinated she was about to drink seawater. Fortunately, she still had the consciousness not to drink it, and poured it on her head. She looked up and saw the dew dripping from the top of the container. She hurried forward and licked as much as she could. Mia dreamed again, and she saw her daughter, who came to her and asked why she didn't take her with her when she left. Mia cried helplessly, blaming herself for the fault. Then Mia was woken up by the rain. It was raining lightly outside, and the rainwater was dripping down the borehole into the container. Mia quickly took the canning box and filled it with rainwater. When Mia picked up the canning box, she suddenly had an idea. She found a long bag, stuffed it into the borehole, and finally opened the top of the container with all her strength. At that moment, Mia looked at her daughter, not to mention how happy she was. Mia finally stepped out of the closed cargo box and saw the endless sea in front of her eyes. The fresh air outside was much more refreshing. Soon, the clever Mia learns to catch the sea fish and finds the food she needs to survive again. From day 9, Mia's survival life is on track, and the modified level has become a new drainer, which is more convenient to use, and the wound on her thigh looks much better. When bored, she would talk to her daughter about her father and the sister and the society's deformed policies. She tore off her notebook, wrote help on each page, packed it into crisper boxes, and then threw into the sea hoping to find help someday. Temperature difference between day and night at sea is very large, and to keep warm, Mia pours spirits into a thermos cup and lights it with a lighter to make a simple oil lamp. On this day, Mia suddenly heard a movement outside. She came out with a child in her arms to see what it was, and unexpectedly received a call from her husband. Mia anxiously tried to unlock the phone and finally connected the phone, but what she heard was disappointing news. Nicole was attacked by extremists on the way. Although Nicole managed to escape, he was unfortunately shot. Nicole is now calling to say goodbye to his wife, and Mia is so sad that she tells Nicole about the birth of her baby and asks him to talk to her precious daughter. Eventually, Mia made that affectionate declaration to Nicole, who was about to die. After her phone runs out of battery, Mia takes the chocolate that Nicole left her and falls into deep thought. The next few days passed very quickly. The water level had risen to its highest point. The walls were covered with Mia's daily life diary. She didn't want to eat fish anymore, and now she had to stay on top of the box to survive. The only thing that remains constant is that Mia did not give up. She used crisper boxes as a base and built a small lifeboat for the baby. One day when Mia was comforting her baby, she suddenly found a seagull flying to eat fish bones, which surprised and delighted her. It meant that she was not far from land, but God didn't give her more time to drift. The water level of the cargo box has reached its maximum capacity. Mia prepares to leave the crate, but the chocolate that Nicole gave her was in the crate. Mia thought that with the sinking speed of the container, she could also float to the surface. Mia got the chocolate, but unexpectedly, her feet were entangled in the messy rope inside the box. She cut the rope with great difficulty, but at this time, the box had sunk more than 10 meters. Although Mia managed to swim to the surface, she couldn't find her sleeping daughter. Mia anxiously shouted to the baby, but a behemoth quietly approached her, and it turned out to be a whale. The whale swam past the baby and gently squirted out a small stream of water, which wet her face and woke up the sleeping baby Noah, who immediately began to cry. When Mia heard the cry, she finally found her daughter's direction. At this moment, Mia was moved by the whale's behavior. She looked at the direction of the whale's departure and silently thanked her. Mia floats in the sea with the survival boat in her arms, throwing the fish bones into the water with the last of her strength. Hopefully, it will attract seagulls. Mia knew that her end was approaching, so she kept talking to her daughter, thanking her daughter for coming to her life. Then a bird call woke her up, and dozens of seagulls came smelling the aroma, and they hovered over Mia and the baby, which just attracted the fishing boats nearby. And the woman let her father rush to the seagull position at full speed, and they worked together to catch the baby. The moment they saw the child, they were surprised. The woman touched the child's face, feeling that the temperature was normal, and soon she found that a rope was pulling the survival boat down. They pulled the rope up and found Mia, who was completely unconscious. The woman tried to do first aid several times, but nothing worked. The baby seemed to feel something and started crying. The woman was silent for a moment, then hurriedly started artificial respiration and finally saved Mia from the brink of death. Mia opened her eyes, realizing she had really survived. She looked at the woman's son and was convinced that it was not a hallucination, and she cried bitterly. This difficult survival experience made Mia deeply experience the fragility and tenacity of life. On the verge of death, she developed a strong bond with her daughter, while also feeling the magic and kindness of nature.